Hello. Many of us are familiar with the Chinese proverb that says that we are blessed to live in interesting times. I doubt right now if anyone is going to disagree with that. A rational, concrete world has become a random, abstract world, and we can't change that. It is what is called fate or destiny. I call it evolution. My name is Daniel Fiverson. I am an evolutionary astrologer. Welcome to the Astrological Weather Report for the June Lunar Cycle from June 10th to July 9th, 2021. This is a very critical, impactful month that we're about to enter. The new moon on June 10th is a Gemini Solar Eclipse, the second of the eclipses of this current eclipse season. 2 weeks ago, we had the first total lunar eclipse in Sagittarius. And then we also have the second of 3 Saturn squares to Uranus, this time with Saturn in his retrograde condition. And many astrologers consider this to be the most significant outer planet transit of 2021. I think there is one other that's not getting much attention, and I will talk about it as we move through this forecast. These are the planetary transits, the major transits for the month. And the ones that are bolded are the ones that we're going to look at in detail. But in this discussion, we will also address and look at most of the others that are listed here, because obviously many of them will be happening either all month or during the time at which the perfection of each of these bolded aspects occurs. So we're going to look at Ceres and Uranus. We're going to look at this second Saturn square to Uranus. We'll look at the sun ingress into Cancer, the solar equinox, the summer equinox in the northern hemisphere, and the winter solstice, solstice, the summer solstice in the northern hemisphere, and the winter solstice in the southern hemisphere. And then we're also going to look at Vesta opposite Neptune. And as I said, we will address each of these other aspects that you're seeing here, because they're all part of the picture for the entire month. So on June 10th, a Gemini solar eclipse announces the June lunar cycle with an annular ring of fire. The new moon is at its apogee, in other words, at its farthest distance from the sun. So the shadow that it casts as it passes between the Earth and the sun only covers a portion of the sun, as you see here in this picture, revealing the sun's corona. A lunar eclipse can only occur when the full moon is within 11 degrees 38 minutes of either lunar node, and a solar eclipse can only occur when the new moon is within 17 degrees 25 minutes of either lunar node. The question that has always puzzled me, as long as I have been observing the sky and studying astrology, which is for quite some time, and that I've never found a satisfactory answer or been able to answer anyone else's question about it, is how is it that at a solar eclipse, the moon is the same size as the sun, and at a lunar eclipse, the Earth's shadow is the same size as the moon? How is this possible? It's one of the great mysteries. The lunar nodes are the actual points in space where the ecliptic, or the imaginary line drawn by the Earth's orbit around the sun, and the path of the moon's orbit around the Earth intersect. There's no physical body where this intersection occurs, but they are real points in space. And this energetic intersection of the diurnal motion of the Earth woven with the moon's monthly cycle represents the etheric pathway from past to future. The lunar south node marks the point in the sky where the moon rises on any given day, correlating to the past. And the lunar north node marks the point where the moon sets on any given day, correlating to the future. Excuse me. Eclipses are breakthrough or breakdown events. Crises are generated whose intent is to dislodge unresolved, crystallized mental or frozen emotional energies. Now, from an evolutionary astrology perspective, the lunar axis is the karmic evolutionary trajectory. It's where we have come from in the past and where we have intended to go in the future. The south node correlates to what has come before, and the north node points toward a probable future. If you have read any of the Seth material, the disembodied entity that was a Seth who was channeled by Jane Roberts many years ago, he talks about our futures being probable, that there are many lines of vectors that go out from any point in time in terms of what the future will yield. More than one potential future stretches out from the present. And it's the choices that we make in the present that determine which future is going to unfold. We can repeat the choices of the past, and that just repeats the past as our future. Or we can make different choices. We can create a future that is different from both the past and the future. Gemini, which is the sign that this solar return occurs in, is ruled by the messenger of the gods Hermes, who is Mercury to the Romans. He correlates to our rational left brain and the lower mind. Now, the sign of Gemini opens our awareness to the localized world around us. It correlates to the language that we use, to words, to our understanding, to our voice in the world that we use to understand and connect with others. It correlates to our brothers and sisters, to our relatives and our neighbors, and it correlates to short journeys through our local environs. As the messenger deity, Mercury was able to enter and leave Hades. He was able to enter and leave the underworld without harm. And there are lots of mythology that discusses this. He went down into the underworld to rescue Persephone. He was the messenger who the guides could send anywhere in order to carry out their work. And he was known as the psychopomp for this because of his ability to go into the underworld. He's the guide of souls. He guided all of the fallen heroes of the Trojan War down into the underworld after the Trojan War. He goes between the worlds of the living and the dead. In human terms, Mercury also guides us down into our own shadow underworld and allows us to navigate that chthonic, that deeply hidden subconscious realm, what's below the surface, without coming to harm. A mutable Grand Cross generates adaptability, and what has become hardened is challenged to adjust to changing circumstances. And we have a mutable Grand Cross at this Gemini solar eclipse. The moon conjoins the lunar north node, implying that our vision should be focused on the future, not the past. Mercury is in close company. He's in a close conjunction, only 1 degree from the new moon eclipse. And he's in Gemini. This is his own nativity, his own native sign where he flourishes. All of the mental dynamics described above lie at the core of this dramatic solar lunar event. The Sun-Moon nodal axis forms a mutable Grand Cross with Vesta and Virgo opposing Neptune and Pisces, both squaring asteroid Juno retrograde in Sagittarius, as you can see delineated in this chart. Sagittarian commitment for outer and inner world experience opens the space for new insights and new understandings. And Vesta's sacred commitment to self actualizes Virgo discernment that engenders Pisces and Piscean compassion and surrender. The Saturn retrograde in Aquarius disrupts what has become hardened. The interruption births opportunities for either proactive or reactive responses to this mentally frenetic, energetic concoction. Unpredictable, reactive Eris kicks up the Mars-Pluto opposition and holds our feet to the fire. This planetary recipe is embedded with escalating waves of violence and irrational behavior that seem to have no moral or ethical compass. And this is what we've been witnessing, whether it's gun violence or outrage, people just acting up in the street, all kinds of boundaries being crossed that have not been crossed. Back in January, obviously, the Capitol riot was a perfect example because that's how long Eris and Mars and Pluto have been working together. It is the Eris-Pluto square that's in this chart that is to me is the most serious, compelling aspect of not only this year but last year and next year again. Eris takes 500 years to go around the sun. She moves very, very slowly. She has not been in this particular aspect with, she is in Aries. She has not been in a square, in a last quarter square from Pluto to Eris with Pluto in Capricorn in 2,700 years. It was the axial age when Homer, Buddha, Lao Tzu, Pythagoras were all on the planet. The major thought streams of Western civilization came onto the planet when Pluto squared Eris from these signs in that decade. The planetary recipe is embedded with escalating waves. I said that, I'm sorry. Challenging aspects to Saturn, Venus, Vesta, and the nodal axis compel restructuring our values and priorities in order to express our personal authenticity. That's Vesta, our authenticity. Are we authentic to ourselves? Are we authentic with other people? Is there authenticity in what we say? Does what we say and do really jive with what we believe and feel? And we can expect disruptive and chaotic events to continue to fill the news. On June 24th, we're going to have the Capricorn full moon. It will be a new conscious awareness emerging as a result of the responsibility and irresponsibility regarding our personal choices and behavior. What have our choices been in the past? There is a yod, finger of God formation here that brings the moon, our emotional body, our emotional experiences into focus, driven by Mars and Sedna, by the choices that we make and bringing us more consciousness. When we commit to adopting a broader, more compassionate view, opportunities emerge to heal the past. And that's what all of these eclipses are about. It's what everything that we have gone through this year and last year is about. It's about healing the past. It's about reimagining what happened, seeing a bigger perspective on what is happening, unfolding today, and working towards creating, imagining, dreaming a different future going forward. Crises erupt that expose the empowerment or disempowerment of the values that support or neglect security issues. And family power imbalances are also exposed. And embedded in this full moon is the frequency of the Saturn Retrograde Uranus square, which I'm going to discuss further on in this talk, considered by many astrologers to be this year's major outer planet aspect. On June 20th, we have the solstice. The solar Cancer ingress as the sun moves through, which will bring about the winter solstice in the southern hemisphere and the summer solstice in the northern hemisphere. So as the sun moves through the moon sign of Cancer, our instinctual emotional nature is revealed, and our sensitivity to others and from others increases. And our underlying fears and insecurities also surface, which is the role of Capricorn, which is Cancer's polarity. Family issues in general will surface, issues with one or both parents, issues with brothers and sisters, and issues as a parent or guardian. Internal emotional conflicts, pressure for resolution. Mars, in self-centered Leo, fresh off his tumble with Pluto and Southern Capricorn, he just had a square perfected to a square to Pluto, and Eris and Aries moves into a confrontation mode with Saturn now, Saturn and Uranus, and into Saturn's disruptive environment. At the solar ingress, the moon at the midpoint of these two patriarchal planets squares off against them. So as the moon opposes insurgent Uranus, it forms a fixed grand cross. It's relatively quickly moving. Generally, when it's the moon, we don't really consider lunar aspects to be as intense as even inner planets, and certainly not outer planet transits. But because this is at the solar ingress, this is at the solstice, it will carry through for the entire season. A mutable Grand Cross could be gracious under the right circumstances because it is adaptable. A fixed cross is not going to be. Intractability and emotional sheltering in place sets the tone for the sun's transit through Cancer. Challenges from Neptune, Pallas Athena, and the lunar north node to them are going to muddy the waters. The veracity of what you believe is challenged by yourself and by others. Revisit what you dismissed as irrational or personally challenging. Now, there are facilitating aspects from Jupiter and Aquarius for the sun to open pathways to opportunities for proactive self-actualization, but we have to work with it. Trines can pass unnoticed if we don't grab them by the horns, so to speak. Everybody would like to have grand trines, would like to have lots of trines. Too many trines can make us a couch potato. It's the squares and oppositions, and certainly the grand crosses, that get us off the couch and get things done. Emotional well-being is encouraged by self-nurturing and compassion. Look ahead to where you want to be 5 to 10 years. Mark your bearings for where you stand in relation to that vector. On June 14th, Saturn, which is now retrograde, makes a second perfection in a square to Uranus. One orbital cycle of Uranus, the relationship between Saturn and Uranus is quite unique and quite important. It represents the actual maturity and cycles of our lives, because one orbital cycle of Uranus holds 3 Saturn cycles. Uranus is 84 years to go around the sun. Saturn is 28 years. That's 3 Saturn cycles. The interaction between these 2 outer planets marks the maturation and individuation. That's Uranus, how we individuate, become who we are uniquely in the world. That's those cycles in our lives. This powerful growth generating configuration spells out critical collective experiences because Uranus also correlates to the collective. Saturn is the structure of space and time. It is structure, and it's gravity and involution. And it's the force that initiates the soul's descent of spirit into the earth. Saturn correlates to our perceived 3D consensus reality. Uranus is our individuated reality. And the totality of the cosmos is conscious. Saturn correlates to the crystallized structure of the consciousness of everything, animal, vegetable, and mineral. The only difference in the consciousness between vegetables, animals, minerals, and humans is the shape and form that it takes. But all living things share consciousness. Fusing the current of life force with the elementals, Saturn creates each individual form according to the matrix of the celestial energies present at the exact moment of birth, where the planetary energies, the constellations energies, what came before and what the souls intended to going forward, all come together as the recipe for what the consciousness of each individual will be born into. And it's all set at the moment of birth. Saturn correlates to the father and the authority figure. Saturn is authority itself. Through the cardinal sign of Capricorn that Saturn rules, Saturn expresses a society and the consensus that is the glue for society. We have to have some consensus. We have to agree to stop at a red light. We have to agree that we don't murder people who we get angry with. But over and above that, over and above those man-made laws, there are natural laws, laws that are not ethical or moral or standards that we have to agree to. They are laws of the true nature of reality that are true at any time and place in history, in past history and in times to come. In its polarity with security-seeking Cancer, Saturn expresses as suppression, repression, and depression. And Saturn and Uranus meet up infrequently because of the irregularity of their individual orbits. The last quarter squares between Saturn and Uranus repeat in an alternating cycle of approximately 90, 500, and 1100 years ago. And the last occurrences in Aquarius and Taurus were 500 years ago in 1432 and 1522. In 1431, Joan of Arc was tried for multiple crimes, including heresy, witchcraft, and dressing as a man. She was unjustly convicted as being a heretic and was burned at the stake. In 1522, we saw the invention of the printing press, Johannes Gutenberg, which led to the advent of Martin Luther, his posting of 95 Theses, precipitating the Protestant Reformation. We could say that the printing press was the invention of the computer in 1500s, and that the invention or the realization of computer technology was the printing press of our time. The effect of this combination is reflected in this revolution that occurred in the structural foundation of the Roman Catholic Church. Past Saturn, Aquarius to Uranus, Taurus, last quarter squares open pathways for new thought and new ways to collectively share information. They brought significant restructuring to established institutions and focused attention on the equality of women. The second perfection between these outer planetary giants occurs on June 14th, as Saturn transits through his retrograde cycle. Personal safety and security becomes a primary focus. Increasing societal pressures begin to look more and more like suppressors and repressors. And the struggle between societal demands and personal needs hits a crisis point. There's both collective outrage, anger, and disappointment on both sides of the aisle. And we've already seen that been going on for quite some time as Jupiter and Saturn entered Aquarius back at the beginning of this year. A Moon-Saturn opposition can be difficult at best. It indicates the repression or suppression of personal expression, resulting in depression. And there can be a tendency to take outer world events personally, which will trigger the desire for emotional and physical withdrawal from the world. Mercury retrograde in Leo at the time of the square will actualize the need to speak truth to authority. Our psyche can be in disarray, searching for some vestige of familiar ground in a challenging political and social landscape. And we seek renewed personal expression in the form of surrogates for normalcy and like-minded allies that make us feel secure in our personal values and priorities in the form of people and material possessions. We seek remedies for emotional and physical healing. Opportunities do exist to reframe our self-image as self-healers rather than depending on others to come and fix us. Opportunities for realizing new truths are presented as well that can be actualized as practical strategies, remedies, and solutions to the ongoing matrix of chaos, disruptions, outbreaks of violence. Aquarius and Uranus, yes, are disruptions. It disrupts and interrupts our world. It's the sign that follows Capricorn, where things become crystallized and hardened, the earth element of Capricorn. Uranus and Saturn come along and they shake up that crystallized form and shatter it so that something new can be in its place. But it also is, it does that also with our inspiration. It can be ideas that come to us seemingly out of left field that seem irrational. Uranus is the higher mind. It joins with Jupiter, it's the right brain. And the two of them together can deliver information to us that we don't get from Mercury, that we don't get from the lower rational mind. Pay attention to what seems to come out of left field. Don't dismiss what seems to be irrational or impossible, because there are ways to work with it. Especially you see here, Neptune conjunct Pallas Athena. Pallas Athena is what is known as the octave transformer between Mercury and Uranus, between the lower mind and the higher mind. And she's able to step down those Uranian inspirations into some practical, rational strategy that we can actually use to live by. There'll be a new sense of self-responsibility freedom, and independence can emerge as a result of identifying our own individual truths. Sacred lines that would not normally be crossed have become more fluid. And again, we saw that in the Capitol riots. We see it on the roads today. People just running red lights because they think they can get away with it. People doing all kinds of things that they can get away with it. They've had a good role model. I won't get into the politics today. The messages we have received must now be wrought into practical application. Virgo, hands-on. Take what we get, internally, mentally, in a dream, in an intuitive moment, in just something that seems to show up out of left field, and hold on to it. Work with it. Just watch to see, what unfolds around it. The expression of personal veracity encourages self-empowerment, individuality, and the recognition of innate talents. A kaleidoscope of personalities pulses chaotically through the collective. Erratic, random events pop up all around us, and we might feel like we're being stalked by the toxic behavior of others. These are all signs of the times we're moving through. What we are really experiencing are homeopathic remedies for the cultural toxins that have embedded our culture, both nationally and worldwide, for quite some time, in some cases, centuries, even millennia. On June 4th, 4 days before the Saturn Uranus square, the Great Mother, Ceres, meets with her primordial grandfather, Uranus. And both of these archetypes have deep traumatic wounds. Demeter was raped by Neptune, Persephone, her daughter, was raped by Pluto, and Uranus was castrated by his children. A new cycle of circumstances and consequences begins that brings together what is most personal with what is most essential. Past beliefs are reviewed. Issues regarding self-care are still on the table. No one is coming to fix us. No one is coming to save us. We all make choices that determine the state of our health and the quality of our lives. Ask yourself, what are the sacred agreements that we have made with ourselves? What is emotionally appropriate, significant, purposeful, and a responsible way to live our lives? I offer consultations that answer the questions, who am I? Why am I here? What are my lessons? And I produce astrological weather reports monthly here on YouTube, monthly forecasts. I write monthly horoscopes. I also do daily transits on Facebook, on my Facebook page. This is my contact information, my website. I encourage you to go there. You can read about myself, about my work, about what is available to you if you come for a reading. Daniel at forevolutionaryastrology.com is how you can reach me, or just pick up the phone, 505-930-2748. I thank you all so much for tuning in, for listening to what I've produced here. I think this is important information that we can all share with the rest of the people in our family and friends. Share this work. We really need to come together as community because that is what is going to save us. The time of the lone wolf has passed. Namaste. Be safe, be well, be truthful.